In today's video, we're going to finish up the penny farthing by completing the drivetrain.
Well, this bike might need some modifications once it's up and running. Really, the only thing that's keeping us from actually riding it right now was the fact that we have these gears here. They're bike sprockets, but that's all we have to actually drive the bike. We're going to need to add some pedals and some cranks. And the idea is that I'm going to come off the back of this fork a bit and put a pedal on this side and then also a pedal on the other side, and then a chain in between the crank on that pedal and the crank on this wheel. This arrangement was required because the wheel is way too big to reach. I can just reach the center of this. I can just reach the center of the sprocket when I'm seated on the bike, so I really couldn't even pedal it. I needed to have an extra mechanism there. One of the choices I had to make was whether I wanted to go with the more modern square taper bottom bracket or this older style single piece crank. And for now, because of technical constraints, I decided to go with the single piece crank. I feel that it's going to be something that I can get this bike up and running a lot more quickly and easily by going this way. If it turns out that I was mistaken, I suppose I can always cut off these and re-weld on a single piece or the square taper bottom bracket. So what I've done to get started is from the bicycles that I've used a lot on this project, went ahead and just taken the cranks off and got everything apart here. So, you know, the crank is off, and I've loosened the sprocket here, so I can get these parts fabricated and welded and taken care of what I need to do here. So the next step was to clean off all these welds and these pipes and so forth off of these shells. And there's quite a bit of welding and there's quite a bit of grinding. So I opted to go to metal supermarkets and have these pieces cut. So my bearing cups are a little bit loose in there. That's not a press fit by any stretch of the imagination. So I'll have to go ahead and tack. I'll go ahead and tack 4 corners. But anyway, that's going to save me quite a bit of time. These cost me $6 a piece. A little bit steep considering that it was just a drop section, but still, I think well worth it considering the time I was going to have to spend getting these trimmed down. So the idea of the pipe here is about 50 thousandths bigger than the OD of my bearing cup. So I'm going to have to weld this together, and to make sure that everything stays in alignment, I've fixtured it in this crank arm. This is actually one I'm not going to use. So, but the hope is that by having it fixtured, everything will stay centered and aligned. So I've got the cups welded onto the little pieces of pipe here, and I kind of ran through the inside of the bearing surface here with some emery paper because they were kind of rusted, but it's rolling kind of nice. There's just light grease on there. I haven't packed these or anything like that. It's just the grease that was on there, but yeah, I think that they came out okay. So for these crank arms, I need the exact same number of teeth on both sides, obviously, since each side is going to be chain driven. If you had a different number of teeth on either side, then as you pedal your pedal from left to right, it's going to come out of sync. Also, since the wheel is so large, I think I'm going to need some pretty aggressive gearing. So I have 2 of these smaller cranks that I think are going to work out pretty well. If anything, they may still be even a bit large, but that's what I'm going to start off with. So I need to be able to mount this onto this crank arm, which gets bolted on right here. So the trouble I'm going to have is that this hole is 15/16 in diameter, and I need to drill two of them in these two plates, and I need to drill two of them, one in each one of these plates, and I don't want to just go buy a new drill just for drilling two holes. So the plan is I'm going to go ahead and drill it out, and then using a router I'm just going to sneak up on this line I have scribed in there. So I think it's going to be quite a bit more difficult, but I've got a drill that goes up to 9/16, so I won't need to take away that much material, and this hole doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Close enough is probably going to be good enough. So anyway, that's going to be the first step. Then we're going to have some other challenges there as well, because I think that this arm is going to extend too far this way, and it'll start hitting the wheel to get it in far enough to have the gear engaged. So I'm probably going to have some sort of an offset on this plate when I go ahead and bolt these crank arms on. But I think that like I've said in the previous videos, this is where things are going to get interesting. So it's just take things slowly, and make sure that we're going one step at a time so that we can get this done nicely. Well, I got my holes formed here. They didn't come out quite as good as I wanted them to. I thought I'd be able to hold that line a little bit better, but I think it'll be plenty good enough. And once the bike's up and running, I'll probably end up just welding these plates to the crank arm anyway. So I think we're good enough for now. So I've got my center hole drilled the four corner holes, and I've double nutted it, and that gives me a bit of a standoff here. So this nut's only got maybe one or possibly two threads engagement here. But what I plan to do is go ahead and weld this nut to the plate, and then then I can come in from the other side. So that should work out fine. So there we go. We got the cranks fitted to the crank arms, and each one of these currently has two nuts offsetting the crank off of the arm. So I'm thinking that it's going to be a little bit close, so I may put a third nut under there. Certainly I can grind this surface down a little bit. One way or the other, I'm going to be cutting this crank arm on this side off. It's going to be up against the wheel, so I'll be cutting that off. And the reason we'll be cutting it off here is that this peg is an anti-rotation, so we kind of need that. I suppose I could shorten this and do a ton of welding, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of advantage to doing that, but certainly can shave this surface down a little bit also if we need to. I got my nuts welded onto the plates. I decided to start with just two. I thought that maybe three is starting to stick out too far and may weaken this whole bracket because it's out too far. And I thought things were going well until one of these fasteners I started to stick in there, stainless steel, started to gall and couldn't go in, couldn't go out. Tried to force it and twisted it off. So, oh man. So anyway, I guess I got to figure out how to get that out. This one came out pretty good, so I think that'll work out well. And when I cut these arms on the cranks, I'm just going to shave this down a little bit. I think I'll be able to without weakening it too much. So I've cut the inner crank arm off. That's the one that's going to be close to the wheel. And then also, instead of adding another nut, I decided to cut about half the thickness of the crank arm off. I think that that's still plenty enough steel. I'm not going to bend that. So for the anti-rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and use the grinder to kind of round off these edges a bit, and I will install my crank arms. So I have my drive assemblies done. Here's my pipe, and there's the drive for the chain, and that spins freely. And there's one for the other side. I guess I need to get that tightened up. These bearings were really rusty, and I decided to use those for starters because as I weld, I guess I was concerned that I'd just trash them anyway. So anyhow, now comes the hard part, to weld that, or those, onto the bicycle. And if they're not precisely welded on there, then the whole thing is going to be a mess. If they're off at an angle or offset a little bit, then the chain's going to constantly drop off. So I got to make sure I get that part right. So before we can weld our cranks onto the forks, we need to widen them up here a little bit. We need to get them wide enough there so the tire doesn't rub. So we're back at it with the acetylene torch. Well, I got my bars spread a little bit, and I guess my second bend back in is really too far down. So that part didn't work out. What's even worse is we needed to bend the bottoms out, and ended up burning right through the pipe. So back to the drawing board. Bummer. These forks were in pretty good shape, so really kind of screwed that up. So to fix these burn throughs, I decided to make a couple sleeves. I took this piece of bike frame and cleaned off the paint, and cut these sleeves here, and sliced up right here so that I can open them up a little bit and place them over here and weld them on. So I took the sleeves that I made and welded them onto the forks. So what I did is just did a spot weld, and then with the C-clamp, clamped it so that it was down in contact with the material, and did another weld, and then moved the clamp and moved the clamp so that it was always in contact with the material. So I guess that this is where I did the weld to weld this bottom portion onto the rest of the fork, which could explain why it might have been a little bit more weak there anyway when I went to go heat it up. But it's good and solid now. Also, I put in some extra gussets at the top to add some strength there as well. So hopefully this fork is really good and solid now. But I do need to get back on it with the acetylene torch. Scary proposition here, but I can't have the fork ends that far apart. So I'll need to see if I can't get those parallel with the stem there. So the challenge I'm faced with here is I need to weld this piece of pipe to the fork in such a way that this sprocket that's on this piece is exactly aligned with that sprocket there. If this sprocket is twisted at a little bit of an angle, or doesn't line up inside to outside pretty closely, then the chain's constantly going to want to be falling off, and probably have some trouble with chain wear and binding and things like that. So as you could probably have told by now, based on what I've been working with on this, I'm not exactly a professional pipe coper. To make a single pipe to get this in the right spot would be a challenge. To make a pair of pipes so that the sprocket on the other side is going to line up exactly equal is probably going to be a lot closer to impossible. So anyway, the solution I've come up with is I'm going to weld a piece of angle iron. I'm going to start off with just a tack. I'm going to weld a piece of angle iron to this bar, and then spend my time taking my measurements and make sure that this angle iron is square to the tube here, and also square to the sprocket and everything. And then obviously another angle iron on the other side, and make sure that they're also square and that they're not tilted in or out or up or down. Make sure that they're all in the right plane and true to each other. And then once I've got that, then I'll go ahead and add a couple more tacks so that so that this is going to be solid on this bar, and then I can weld my pedal brackets onto the back side here, and then once those are welded all together like that with that angle iron, it's not going to stay that way. This is going to look pretty bad, but the idea is going to be that once I've got that all welded together like that, then I can add my pipes afterwards. I've got a couple of these handlebar ends came off some of the junk bikes, and then I can weld that in a permanent, good-looking way. And then once everything's where it needs to be, then these can get cut off. So I checked my sprocket here as I rolled the wheel, and the sprocket is reasonably parallel to the fork here as it is on the other side. So I'm trying to take some measurements which are going to be a lot easier to the fork, and the distance from the center of the axle to the bottom of the bracket is the same on both sides. The bracket here is square to the fork on both sides. And then also, if I put the square up against the forks, then that piece of angle iron is square. So, on both sides. So I think I have those brackets pretty square. Before I start welding some more, I'm going to be a little bit more certain, but I think I've got them. Also, if I go square to this bracket, and then have that bracket up against the corner here, the other one sticks back the same amount. Using a piece of angle iron, I went ahead and scribed the line that's along the axis of this piece. So that'll help me also stay perpendicular to this part. So the biggest trouble I'm going to be having right now is tolerance stack up. That bracket is perpendicular to the bar, that's perpendicular or parallel to this, and this is going to be perpendicular to that. So we're still going to have to manage that a bit. So I need to make sure that this crank here is on the same plane as the crank on the wheel. So what I've done is taken a couple pieces of steel, clamped them to the bottom crank, and clamped them to the top crank. And I think that should do it for me. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is put in a tack, and then test it out and see how things look. So I have this crank assembly tacked on here, and as I eyeball it, it looks pretty good. So I got this little junk chain, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on there and see if it just kind of like rolls along without dechaining. Well, after a few trials here, we got this tacked, and the chain runs true on that cog. So that's the good news. So now the next step is to see if we can't get the cog on the other side. And then, like I've mentioned before, these angle brackets are only really temporary. After I get my proper bracing in from here onto the fork, then I'll cut those off. Well, the original plan was to tack both these cranks on here, and then start working on some more permanent bracing. But in testing, I've had my tacks break, and it's been a bit of a frustration. And I think I'm going to want to use this crank to help position the other one. And the last thing I want at this point is to have this one fall off as I'm bracing up for the other one. So I think what I'm going to do here is, this is a bar end. You know, old style mountain bikes use these on the end of the handlebars. I guess the idea was that's supposed to like help protect your fingers from brush or whatever, I guess. I don't know. So, but anyway, this came off of handlebars, and I have actually 2 pairs of them, and I think it'll be perfect right here. I've got this bracket welded on. The weld's not quite complete yet, but it's solid now. Put that there. So I guess from this point I can go ahead and go to the other side. So this is going to be the tricky part. I need to get these 2 cranks aligned. They have to be as close together as they can, as if the axle from each one was going straight through and joining. So the first step is I need to get the spacing right. And I went ahead and measured the cogs down here, and from inside to inside is 2.75. So I've got 2 blocks of wood here. They've cut from to 2.75. So I was having difficulty clamping these blocks, so I decided to put some drywall screws in there, and they were only marginal, obviously, because they're just trying to barely clamp those teeth. So I added some goop glue with the hopes that that's going to be strong enough to at least hold the bracket long enough for me to get some tacks on. Crank about as close to the same position as I could measure. I've got my crank tacked into place here, but without the clamps, it's wanting to flop all over the place. So this bracket isn't quite strong enough to hold it as securely as I need. So I guess I'm going to have to weld this bracket on, same as I did on the other side, before it's strong enough. So I've got this piece ground down pretty close to well within a material thickness in most places anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and weld it in, and then hopefully my crank will stay in the right place. Well, I'm all tacked up on this side. Looks pretty good by eye. So I'm going to go ahead and get some chains on here and see how it rolls before I finish welding everything up. So here's the concept. As the wheel turns, it turns both cranks. The one chain came off, so they're not exactly lined up. But we do have a couple small issues here. We do need to get a little more clearance up here at the top of the wheel. And also, there's a clearance issue here with the chain. So it's wanting to rub that fork there. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do there yet, but we'll work it out. The drivetrain is what I expected and hoped it to be, but I've got some issues that I need to solve. Not sure exactly how to do it. I have some ways that I can get around it really easily, or some other ways that I think will be better, but exceptionally more difficult. So still have to figure that out. I think this video is starting to get pretty long, so I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching my video. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Love to hear them. Also, if you click that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.